You're listening to CapConversation, the digital discourse of financial services today with Capco and guests. I'm your host, Audra Schoenfeldt, Head of Strategic Analytics for Capco US. Today in this podcast, we're going to be talking to Krishna Kallakuri, the co-founder and CEO of Diwo, a platform for supporting analytics-based decision-making with novel cognitive capabilities enabling continuous business optimization. Welcome, Krishna, and thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Audra, very good morning and pleasure to speak with you today.
Yeah, thanks so much. To start us off, I was wondering, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to Diwo?
Before I get into a detailed introduction about myself, I would like to thank Capco and the entire team for this great partnership and great collaborative effort, especially from the leadership team at Capco. Len, Audra, you have been great partners, and we especially admire the way you bring the intellectual advisory aspects to all of your clients. And we as a team are truly excited about this partnership, and we see a great synergy going into the future. And thank you for the great partnership here, Audra.
Thanks. Likewise on our side.
So that said, I'll give you a quick intro about myself, and I will also tell you about my journey to Diwo. As I told you, I'm one of the founders and I'm the CEO at Diwo. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I found a company called DataFaxy about 15, 16 years ago, which is a business analytics company with a core competency in data science and data engineering. The practice today is about 1,000-member organization with a national footprint with various clients in retail, financial services, healthcare, and so on. That said, I actually transitioned into Diwo about 4.5 years ago with a whole vision to build an enterprise-class B2B software platform for business decision makers. That said, I currently leverage all of my real-time world experiences, all the learning that I had in the past 2 decades, trying to bring all those experiences into Diwo and truly help the enterprises with decision-making aspects of their respective businesses. So that's a really quick intro about me. I come with a very strong technical background. I have done technical consulting in data and analytics all my life. All of my career is around data. Again, whatever I do at Diwo is all again about data as well. So that's a really quick introduction about me, Audra.
Thanks so much, Krishna. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more as well about, since, starting at Diwo back in 2014, a little bit more about Diwo's mission in particular and what inspired you for the current focus and mandate the company has today.
So the way I thought about Diwo, the idea really sparked about 17 or 18 years ago, Audra. When I was consulting, I used to work for one of the automotive OEs here in Detroit. And in my role, I used to report up to my boss, who was the SVP for marketing and different channels at this automotive OE. So what I have done for him is I used to build some machine learning models, or I used to build some dashboards or reports for him in his role to support his decision-making aspect every day. But what I've learned from him during my journey was he always came back to me asking questions about, okay, hey, if we ran a campaign in Florida, do you know what is the likely response for this campaign? And do you know if there are people who are aged over 65 within 2 miles radius of a Lincoln dealership? And if yes, how can we build a targeted campaign? And if we build this targeted campaign, do you know what is the likely outcome of this campaign, right? So some of these questions that he used to ask back in the day, it was truly not possible to give him any answers. Or we did not have the technology or the ability to build anything that he was asking back in the day. That is when I really realized that, any aspects around data that you could provide in the form of a report or a dashboard is one aspect, but the businesses trying to realize an outcome coming out of those aspects and trying to come up with a decision end of the day is the most critical aspect, right? So that is what he taught me. He taught me that if I cannot draw a conclusion end of the day from any of the aspects that you deliver on a day-to-day, whether it's a report or dashboard, I am not justifying my job. So that is where the whole idea sparked, right? So again, here I am after several years. I still took the idea and said, okay, why don't we help the business station makers with the whole aspect of advising them about how they can arrive at a decision at the end of the day. So that's how the whole idea sparked.
Well, that certainly resonates extremely well with myself. I mean, my role at Capco on the whole reason for strategic analytics is really the core platform is making better business decisions through data. And I've learned through my own journey about, you can have analysis paralysis and tell all sorts of information. But if you're not taking action off of that, it's only so valuable. And guiding businesses on getting to that actionability is no small task, especially with the overwhelming amount of data that is increasingly available today.
I totally agree. And that is where we as a company are focused to bring those decision-making aspects to the business.
Yeah, I would say from that standpoint, my next question kind of continues on that journey about, in an increasingly digital world today, the data trail that people leave, is increasing exponentially. I think there's something like over 500 million tweets, 300 billion emails, 4 petabytes of information on Facebook content created daily. And I would argue in financial services, that, that doesn't even include the information banks can capture about their customers through our everyday financial activities and transaction. There's so much power that can be harnessed with that data to make more informed and customized services available for the customer base. But making sense of that in a really usable business intelligence out of it seems really impossible. So are there areas within financial services that you think could best leverage a solution like Diwo to help take advantage of that volume of data that the banks capture today about their customers?
Absolutely, Audra. We especially think areas in credit risk management are some of high visible areas in financial services where Diwo can provide substantial value to the respective businesses. So within credit risk, you can think about, how can the collections team start to think about, a channel placement or a channel workout, looking at the current climate, right? How can they be proactive in, designing their collections on how they could be more proactive in mitigating risk in their respective portfolios is one key area that we think financial services can benefit quite a bit from a platform like Diwo. That said, to your point, Audra, when we talk about credit risk management, right, the whole aspect of structured, unstructured data, right, trying to understand the current patterns or the trends or the behavior of a customer and trying to draw some conclusions coming out of the data can be applied in many areas of credit risk, especially within this climate. So I believe the businesses can take advantage of bringing all that unstructured data together and also kind of mitigate risk within their respective portfolios within the areas of credit risk.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm curious, certainly you can't talk about probably credit risk without thinking now about the impact, of COVID-19 and, referencing today's climate. And with that not disappearing anytime soon, it's something where I think that the previously assumed risk on individuals or businesses by, a banking organization was vastly different today than it would have been how they managed it even last year. So in terms of, as you think more about, again, the power of Diwo and your tooling, is there anything in particular you think that's, distinctive or can help on how it's different today than how that would have been managed, even last year?
So at least the way we think about it in today's climate is how can we truly, become an intelligent advisor to their respective business functions, right? So when you look at that key aspect of, decision making, when you consider credit risk as a use case, one key area that we truly think is beneficial is how can we also bring some macroeconomic aspects of points into this whole use case, right? So when you start looking at areas of credit risk, you could say, okay, how does some macroeconomic factors are going to affect, a certain portfolio or a certain area of credit risk, right? So the real value is, there could be a 1% increase in unemployment, right? So if that is the case, how does that affect a certain credit portfolio, right? Or if there is a decrease in unemployment, right? Is there an impact on the overall portfolio? So that is how we think, the financial services industry can benefit from combining some of this, valuable information that's out there in terms of some macroeconomic factors, combining them with internal data sets, and really put decision making, seamless to the respective businesses.
That makes tons of sense to me. So you're leveraging, to your point, the external overall market movements or that macroeconomic level. And it's not about just the super detailed data you can get to at the individual level, but really the combination of the two in the most effective way possible.
That is correct.
Actually, on that note, because we talk about bringing in the external data and all those elements together, I'm curious your opinion on depending on the use case, timeliness of data also I'd say is an increasing trend that's top of mind for businesses, because as your point, as technology is advanced, the ability to have truly real-time data access, real-time data decisioning becomes a really meaningful thing, and it matters in some areas more than others. But I'm curious about any of your thoughts or opinions on the element of whether things should be done in true real time from an analytics perspective or not when it comes to some of these types of areas like credit risk or otherwise.
I think the need to bring data in real time has never been more important than today's climate, right? Because when you look at some key aspects of bringing any external data, especially the macroeconomic factors, they keep changing every day, right? So for us to stay on top of these kinds of variables that are going to affect the overall decision making aspect, it is extremely critical to combine data from any source where there is true value of bringing that data in real time is critically important for businesses. So as a platform, again, we have all the enablers to bring all of this external data in real time or near real time or real time is one of the core competencies on our platform as well. We believe that's truly valuable to the business.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I'm curious, as you think about, as you've been working more and more through Diwo with various types of, business stakeholders and on that journey of, making sure that you can make better decisions through tooling that can help you, whether it's, dashboards or for actionable insights. I find that the ability to have a truly data-driven culture is what I would also articulate it as on the business side is an evolving journey. It does vary from business to business. So do you have any experiences you feel like you've had that speak specifically to when you've been trying to work with introducing Diwo to a particular community and where it's gone, really, really well or been more of a struggle on that kind of ability to ingest the data-driven culture aspect on the business side?
So that's a great question. At least from our experience, I will help you understand the lay of the land today and also tell you some of our recent experiences within our most recent deployments as well. When you look at most enterprises today, right, the way they consume data today is in the form of a dashboard or a report, or even a machine learning model output ends up in an Excel, right? Or in many cases, a machine learning model output is also put into some kind of a visualization, right? So here is where the managers or the respective business decision makers are trying to achieve today, right? They try to manually synthesize all this information together, right? So they are trying to collect insights from a dashboard, or they're trying to collect some more insights from an Excel or a visualization, and they are really trying to create a manual hypothesis, right? And once they arrive at some kind of a hypothesis, they are slowly trying to make one decision at a time, right? So the key aspect here that we all have to remember is time, right? So in the process, the businesses are losing on key opportunities, which are very timely. And this whole process of creating hypothesis or synthesizing these insights, that is very time consuming. That is very manual. And in many cases, I'm pretty sure there is some bias as well, right? So this is where we want to bring that true automation, right? How can you automatically synthesize the insights, or how can you enable businesses to arrive at decisions much faster where they are not manually synthesizing these insights? and especially put all of these insights within a specific business process or a business context, which is critically important, right? So that is what we try to do in most deployments. One of our most recent deployment is within a retail and financial services domain, is how can we truly bring down that whole time of decision making from weeks to days, right? So the whole idea behind these deployments was how can we have the businesses adopt this whole aspect of consumption of insights, right? Consumption of analytics rather than production of analytics. So that is the key difference where we are trying to help the businesses understand on how people can start looking at consumption rather than production. So that is what we truly believe will be a great data-driven decision framework, at least in our view.
That certainly resonates with me. And I think the focus on the consumption versus production is such a great concept. And one thing you said, I had to chuckle a bit because it's so true about how no matter how many, increasingly enhanced dashboards, machine learning models, great data outputs there are, oftentimes things still end up in Excel. And even for myself, I'm someone completely bought in on the world of data analytics and using, big data sources. And even I still am a lover of taking it still to Excel in the end, to take a look at it, think about it myself, and put a human eye on it. And I think it's not so much that Diwo is seeking to replace the human eye, but to your point, just really bring down through automation a lot of the thought time so it can be done in a quicker, more consumable fashion.
That is correct. I believe hopefully the industries will start adopting this man-machine kind of symbiosis where they are able to leverage some very interesting decision making aspects to help benefit their respective businesses.
Yep, that makes tons of sense. And I'm kind of curious because I think, I have a familiarity with it, but for the benefit of folks listening, when you think about, we talked about how the Diwo tool is able to obviously ingest, great volumes and diversity of data, both at the internal level, but also if you want to layer over macroeconomic factors. But, that starts to sound like a lot of different data sources, and the effort it would sound like to set something like that up seems like it could be potentially overwhelming to businesses, depending on the internal maturity of their existing, data stores and data models. Do you want to comment a little bit about, abusing or disabusing of that notion, or what it would really take to get something like Diwo up and running in a meaningful fashion for a business?
So when you look at a typical use case, we are talking about probably 8 to 12 weeks to really deploy the use case end to end. That's how the platform has been designed. And to give you a little bit more background about the platform itself, the way we have thought about all the data engineering or data preparation or any data science aspects are concerned, right? We start to put all of those requirements in Confluence templates today, which means I'm interested in a certain KPI, or if I capture the definition of a certain attribute in the business, right? Or if there is a specific business rule, all of those are put into predefined Confluence templates. And now what we've done on the platform is we've created some very proprietary processes behind the scenes where we are able to automatically translate all of these Confluence templates, where we are able to automatically bring those data engineering and data science pipelines into the system, which truly brings that acceleration to deployment, right? Now, that is where we also build something called a business context graph, which is really the heart and core of the Diwo ecosystem itself. So that is where we are really able to accelerate a number of data sources from day one, put that into Confluence, and then automatically translate all of that into Diwo. So you're looking at a typical deployment time frame of 8 to 12 weeks, depending on the use case today.
That makes sense. And then I know that we talked from the very beginning about, the ultimate goal is that something that, enables enterprise level type of analytics. But from the way you talk about the setup, you don't have to start talking about the whole entire ecosystem of data, at an institution. You can start with one use case, to your point, like credit risk analytics, and just focus on setting up for that subset of data and then kind of build from there, correct?
That is correct. That's how we think most businesses will start benefiting especially in the areas of credit risk, right? At least the way we think about Diwo in financial services is a holistic view. And when you look at different areas within financial services beyond credit risk management, credit risk may have something to do with another marketing team, right? Or there is another other business function that has a dependency on credit risk, right? So once you start with a specific use case, and eventually you can start thinking about how can you add more and more use cases where you're able to govern some of those decisions as well, right? Meaning, a decision coming out of credit risk may have an impact on marketing, right? So that's how we think about Divo in a holistic way.
Yep, that makes sense. And I'm curious because depending on the institution, they have either probably a lot of existing either in-house homegrown systems or external other providers they've been using for, to your point, maybe it's traditional data visualization and dashboarding or things of that nature. Do you see Diwo as a replacement for those types of tools that are in place, or more of a complement and an augment because of its focus on more of the decisioning aspect, or I'd say the scenario planning creation element?
So Divo is really designed to leverage any existing assets within the enterprise. That's one of the core strengths in the platform. The way we think about Divo is how can we leverage any existing assets that the enterprise may have, right? Whether it comes in the form of a data warehouse, or whether there is some data sitting in a data lake, right? Or they have built another application which is producing insights, right? So Divo is really designed to be agnostic and consume various types of insights, whether they are historical insights or predictive insights or any other types of insights, right? So we truly believe the enterprises should not reinvest in building the same insights over and over again. That is where Divo is able to really, provide substantial value by optimizing the timelines and providing a framework for decision making.
Thanks for that. That makes a lot of sense from my end. And I'm actually going to take us down a slightly different path than from here, since we've been talking, throughout the discussion thus far about, the volumes of data that are available and how you can ingest many different types of sources, whether they're macroeconomic or at the individual level. I commented on there's data that a financial services institution would capture about me through my own transactions with their products, but there's also the digital footprint that I leave just in the world by going on Google and social media or checking my emails and things like that are also capturable in different ways today. Do you have a view as you think about the broader ecosystem of data around kind of ethical use of data, and ethical AI? I think that's top of mind for a lot of institutions now today, more and more around as tooling becomes more and more sophisticated. Just because I can allow it to help me, understand more and make better decisions, is that the right thing to do? Or where should the line be drawn around how much the machine should be able to, help us out in our future vision?
That's a great question, Audra. Especially in today's world, with the given amount of technology and innovation, it's very critical to balance innovation where we are not able to step over any personal or privacy aspects of any business, right? Especially businesses that involve any customers or any privacy aspects that may be considered. So we actually think bringing that ethical value in terms of where you draw a boundary on how the machine can learn from data, right, is extremely important. And the way we think about it is, when you look at some of the models that we deploy in Divo, some of them are regulated, right? Meaning they need an approval from a specific team within financial services where they are able to assess the model, making sure there are no aspects of privacy that are being compromised in the process. So we highly go through a process where we are able to validate these models that go into the system, and at the same time leverage most value coming out of these models that are leveraged for various subject areas.
Yes, I think to your point, the regulated aspect is a key element, especially in financial services, because there's, modeling that's used for things like credit decisioning that absolutely has already, I think, a good external check and balance system because of the regulatory nature. But then also as we start to think about, from a digital journey and the customized experience, not everything that can be learned about me leads to a decision in my product financially, but it might have to do with, what the bank knows about me when I log in, or helps me in terms of recommendations or just advice, like that, those aspects of customization. So I think that's where, as we get into some of those, where it may not be something where it tells me whether I'm going to get a certain credit line or a certain, interest rate, but is also just made to make my experience easier, is where I think it'll continually become a bit blurry too, because I think the checks and balance on just customized marketing activities is certainly quite different. Or less of a focus, but more where things like your movements, in social media and online could be more valuable.
I cannot agree more, Audra. I think that is where we all have to draw a fine line between how technology can be leveraged to what aspect, right? So I completely agree with you on that.
And I was actually a little curious, since we've been talking a lot about financial services, obviously, because of the focus of, Capco and what we've been working on from the credit risk side with Diwo. But as you commented about your background and kind of prior to coming to your focus with Diwo, having worked outside of the financial services industry, and from a data analytics and business intelligence lens, I'm curious if you have a view on some of the other markets and where financial services stacks up in terms of its complexity and usage of data and business intelligence for decisioning versus other industries.
So at least the way we've been experiencing, reactions from various verticals, we see, a lot more adoption within financial services and retail, where we see users are beginning to understand the importance and significance of simplifying the whole decision-making process, where timely business opportunities are not lost in translation. And within retail, we've seen some very interesting changes in the business community, where the businesses are realizing that we cannot, make decisions based on historical types of insights, or we cannot operationalize a certain aspect of a business using Excel. We've seen that change or trend evolving in retail and financial services. And what we are also beginning to see is people understanding that a certain aspect of BI or dashboard is only going to take them only so far in their journey, and they are beginning to realize that they have to go beyond the traditional way of consuming insights, and taking these insights and contextualize within a certain business process or a certain business function is something that we are beginning to see more and more, both in financial services and retail.
Yeah, I think that contextualization aspect is such a key point, because I think even as we think about the views of data about a customer, whether at an individual product level or at a total, institution or enterprise level, part of the piece there is understanding, the full ecosystem about a data point, and not just where it sits in one operation. So that's important in financial services, or absolutely everywhere else, to your point, retail or otherwise. I think probably one last question, since we've been talking obviously about all the advances in technology and decisioning, and we started off a little bit about the impact of COVID and how that led to things like credit risk being important because of the evolving environment from a financial standpoint and for banks today and the economy. But just to kind of close us out, I'm curious that, with COVID not disappearing anytime soon, and, this prevalence of remote working, looks like it might be here to stay for the long haul. I know for myself, I now work out of my closet full time in my home to avoid hiding from my toddler, which works out well for quiet purposes. But from your perspective, how have you seen that the new working environment change in 2020 in any significant ways? And what are some of the future of work changes that you think technology might be able to empower more broadly in the market as we look into 2021 and beyond?
So, one major change, at least we have noticed within our respective teams in 2020 during COVID, is what we are beginning to see is most employees are beginning to realize that COVID is not going away anyway soon. We've seen most of them are being a lot more responsible in executing their day-to-day responsibilities. And, in many occasions, people have stepped up. The productivity has significantly increased by at least 50% in many cases. And people are beginning to, adopt to this new normal, which is, kind of collaborating with your team members using Zoom or, Teams or various types of collaborative platforms, right? And we are beginning to see that people are outputting more in terms of productivity. And at the same time, what we're also beginning to see because of this situation is from most employees that they are losing that emotional connection, right? So what we are at least trying to do beginning the end of 2020 or going into Q1 2021 is to create a more balanced work environment where we could have some employees come into our office every other day or at least 2 times a week, or create a round robin system where people are at least able to interact in a safer environment is what we are also thinking can bring a significant change within the respective teams here.
And I think that's the journey that, we're all on, and where we actually end up for the true normal, hopefully in a post-COVID world, remains to be seen. But I couldn't agree more about, in some ways, I think once we all realized that it wasn't just a couple weeks of work from home and that we really had to adopt to truly long-term functionality in a remote environment, things like Zoom and Teams and being able to be on video. So even if you're not in the room, you still see people's gestures and you can brainstorm. I know at Capco, we really like certain types of collaboration tools like Mural as well, because you can literally put sticky notes on a board all together, just as if you were in the room. Has been really, really great. But the reason that works is because we're all in the same boat at the moment. So it's not like half the people are in the office and half are remote. So as we get to, more of that blended or whatever, more of a normal environment where some people would be in an office would be, I think that's an open-ended question around how do you maintain some of the efficiencies and productivity that's gained with some of those tooling, but also allow people to have that same connectivity when it's a little bit more of a blended in-person and not in-person culture again.
That is very true, and I cannot agree more, Audra. That is the balance that we all need to start thinking about. And as COVID starts to slide down, we are hoping this new normal will come back into play, and we are all looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, it's been a pleasure. So thank you so much for your time today. I know it was absolutely wonderful getting to learn a little bit more about your background and what brought you to Diwo. And then we've enjoyed getting to learn a bit more about the platform. And hopefully for folks listening, you and I are believers in the power of data and intelligence and decisioning, but I think you gave a good view of how that's increasingly critical for folks to take in financial services and beyond. So we really enjoyed having you today.
Thank you, Audra. It was a pleasure speaking with you today. And we appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this podcast. And hopefully we'll have more of this in the coming future.
Thanks so much. You've been listening to CapConversation, a Capco production. This podcast is for information only and should not and does not constitute consulting services.